Well, hey everybody, Sean Hakes here from CRCO live with kind of a special update, something that we're doing a little more frequently lately with these digital meetings and whatnot. I got Clint Dorris with me, who's the candidate for Douglas County Commissioner. Clint, welcome. Appreciate you taking time to join us.
Thank you, Sean. Great to be here.
Yeah, so today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to do kind of a Q&A session. I got some questions for you. Anyone in the audience, we're kind of streaming this out to multiple pages. We'll be keeping an eye on any comments. If you have any questions for Clint during this time, feel free to throw them in the comments section below, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. But other than that, how's your day going so far, Clint? Welcome.
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Obviously, it's hard times for a lot of folks out there right now with this COVID-19, and looking forward to folks being able to get back to work. But we're doing fantastic in the Dorris family.
Very good, very good. Well, to start things off, my first question to you is, what in your right mind, I guess, would make you, or anyone in general, want to run for a county commissioner position?
Well, I think, first and foremost, it's a calling. My family's in Douglas County in particular. We're here to really focus on kids in our county and some of the bigger issues that we've run into as a community, if you will. And I had the kind of pleasure, so to speak, to be asked to participate in chairing a committee for the commissioners regarding school safety after our hero Kendrick Castillo was killed in a school shooting. And certainly kids are very big in our heart. And so after we did that committee, a lot of people started asking me to run, and I said, why would I ever do such a thing? And certainly out of 300,000 people in the county, there's someone that would be better suited. And after a lot of prayer and thought and investigation, we felt like that was something we were being called to do. And I certainly wouldn't recommend it to folks that aren't called to it. But it's been a big pleasure to be part of, and certainly humbling to have so many people supporting me.
And with this run, do you have any surprises along the way? What's probably the biggest surprise that you found while running?
I think a couple of things that are maybe even disappointments, if you will, is that sometimes our elected officials very frequently are, obviously not every one of them, but it's surprising how many of them make every decision based on a future election rather than just what they think's the right decision for the community. And so it's been really surprising to see that with a handful of folks. And there's also an awful lot of cronyism, if you will, where you see endorsements from people for folks that you're kind of taken back from it. So that's been pretty surprising to me. I spent a lot of time in D.C. and working with the Hill there, running big government programs. So I'm no stranger to politics, but it is kind of interesting at these lower levels. And frankly, people are very People take local politics very personally, and so that leads to some interesting conversations as well.
Sure.
Sometimes.
Yeah. So what do you like the most about it?
I love meeting all the folks. I went. We had about 380 or so delegates that were part of the assembly here a couple weeks ago, and I don't know how many thousands of miles I drove across this county, but I went to door to door to about 350 of the 380, and obviously COVID was a factor there, but it was amazing to meet people door to door, face to face, and of course I kept my social distancing, and a lot of people even in the midst of this wanted to shake hands, and certainly I would oblige them, and I had some hand gel I would put on and after each visit, but it's really amazing to go meet your neighbors, across the whole county. It's pretty cool.
And speaking of TriCounty, what are your thoughts on with how this has all been handled and things like that, and whatever, and anything else?
TriCounty is a really interesting thing. A lot of the listeners and viewers may not realize this, but we're mandated to have a health department. In Douglas County, in this particular instance, we actually contract with an organization to be our health department, if you will. And so that's a partnership with 2 other counties. So obviously the TriCounty piece. That started many, many decades ago. Back when Douglas County probably didn't have, 20% of the population. And so it made sense. What I think has been a very significant surprise to a lot of people is that, literally they're not elected officials. They're a hired organization, and yet they have the authority to, literally shut down our entire economy here in the county. So I think my guess is you'll see a lot of lawsuits that probably run all the way to the Supreme Court across the country over this. The Constitution unequivocally does give the government the right to take drastic measures to prevent things like a pandemic, but it also has to be very specifically, narrowly defined. So, when I can walk into a small town coffee shop and grab a cup of coffee, I'm grateful for that. But I'm also concerned by the fact that I can't walk into the dry cleaner and drop off my dry cleaning, right? It just doesn't make any sense. So this is not the specifically narrow requirement that the Constitution. It's really a shotgun approach to, whether it's the governor's opinion or his staff, or in this case, TriCounty. So from my perspective, this is going to change, right? There's a reason we have elected officials in our country, and that's the foundation of our, representative government. And so when we have the authority sitting in an organization that can literally shut down our county, and they're not elected officials, that's a big problem to me. I know that the county in the past has, they had done a study, and certainly partnering up with these 3 other counties was a more economical path. Now, I think we know that maybe that comes with some strings that we're not very appreciative of today. And, I'll give you a statistic, and, sometimes folks don't agree with me, and that's okay. But across 3 counties, Douglas County, Arapahoe, and El Paso, it's estimated that we have about 58,000 pre-K through 12 kids that don't have enough food to eat every week. And there's some neat organizations like CRCO that last year myself and a handful of folks raised about $30,000 for those guys to create little, bags of food that these kids can take home every weekend so they have something to eat. Well, their parents are the ones that are impacted by this probably most severely, right? 98% of the companies in our country are fewer than 20 employees. When their establishment, their employer's not open, they're not working, and they're not making money. They're not feeding their kids. So I look at this as, no kidding, a circumstance where we need to look at the data. We need to look at other nations and what their death rate has been, and look at the death rate across our country relative to the population, and start making decisions that will help get families back to work and no kidding, get kids fed. Definitely. So TriCounty, we need to do some work with TriCounty. Great. Is my sign attacking me back here?
That's part of the joy, of at home. You got all the same with me. I've got all kinds of stuff set up. You get my little slot machine back there. When I get bored, get to go play. So some people would paint you as a knuckle-dragging soldier. Tell me a little bit about that. So back 30 years ago, I had the pleasure to be a military guy, an Army guy, and do little 6-man team op stuff, and earned some awards there. I consider it, I had opportunity to excel. So those were good old days, and so back then I wore a uniform, and for the 20 some odd years past that, I've still been a soldier for what's right across the globe, and serving our country, whether it was a government contractor serving the country or as a civil servant running big multi-billion counterterrorism programs out of the Pentagon. So I hadn't had a uniform on in maybe 2 decades, but
I have been to Afghanistan dressed like I am right now, right? So still always trying to serve and be a soldier and for our citizens here in the county as well. So I think those experiences shaped who I am for communication and leadership and so forth. And I wouldn't change the world, but yeah, I'm not much a Knuckledragger anymore. My waistline probably proves it.
Well, thanks for your service. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Now, the next question for you, it's more of a controversial question. I know it's kind of could go anyway, but what's your thoughts on red flag?
So red flag, I've told folks, it's certainly controversial. I'm not a fan of any red flag law. I recognize, I'll give some folks a benefit of the doubt in that they think they're trying to solve a particular problem. I know from dealing with legislation in D.C., when you get into the legislative process, you might think you're making sausage and what comes out the other side is guacamole or something along those lines. But here's what I tell folks. I'm not much for admiring problems. I'm more about solving problems. So relative to our own county and red flag, I don't like it. I don't personally believe that there's enough due process in it. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but I can read. And I recommend to anyone, especially if someone doesn't like it, they need to go read it, right? I don't appreciate necessarily when people just blindly say they don't like something and they're not informed. But here's the conversation I've had with the sheriff and the undersheriff, and in fact, Jack Cawley, chief of police over at Castle Rock, is that it's now the responsibility of all these law enforcement departments to create a policy that adds back in what we would all agree to be appropriate level of due process, right? There's plenty of good district attorneys around, folks like George Brockler that can help guide that, as well as, the driver for this was mental health. If you read the actual law, I think it says mental health once, right? So to me, that doesn't mean that they're meeting the intent of why it was even created. So the other thing that I've said to the sheriff and others is make sure that there's a licensed mental health professional that's involved in the conversation before anyone takes any steps towards thinking they need to remove someone's weapons. Now, a lot of things too is, a lot of folks probably don't realize, in the instances where we have battered women and restraining orders, we can go in and the law enforcement can go take guns already, right? In fact, I've had for about 6 months, we had a person that was part of our homeschool group and her 4 children living in our finished basements because she had that problem. I ended up with all of her husband's guns, right? Because the law enforcement takes them away. So there's some precedents in those type of very specific, unique, and narrow circumstances, and we just need to go put a policy in place, and then our voters that are upset about this, right, including myself, need to get active and go change the people that sit in Denver, because that's how you solve the problem forever. Is you've got to have the votes. Right now, we don't have the votes. But what we can do is solve it from a policy perspective at our local level, and that's the way it needs to happen. So people talk about this problem. They don't talk about solutions. I just gave you a solution.
There you go. Yeah, appreciate it. And for anyone that's watching right now, feel free to drop a comment. If you have a specific question for Clint, post it. I should be able to catch it and read it out loud. If this is a great time for this open discussion for Q&A. But before we get to that, favorite food?
It's probably cake or something like that, right?
There you go.
I love good Mexican food. Yeah.
Yeah, and tell us a little bit about your family guy. I'm assuming you got kids. And everything.
Yeah. So I've got 4 kids. I joke I'm 50 with a 3-year-old, or I'll be 50 in May. God's got a sense of humor, jokes on me on that one. But it's a blast. I've got a son, Cody, that's 16. Camden is 15, a daughter, Kittrell, that is 12. and then Cooper's the 3-year-old terror. So fun times for sure. Luckily, we live on a few acres, so and the kids are homeschooled, so everybody's homeschooled now, right?
Right.
So it's not a whole lot different for our lives these days, but luckily the kids get out a little bit on our property.
So you did homeschool by choice, then?
That's correct.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So I'll tell you. So my wife's the smart one in the house. She's the degreed aerospace engineer and was working on the shuttle program. And not too long after we had the Columbia disaster, our first child was born, and she decided she just felt called to stay home, and then when it came time for school, she felt called to homeschool. So she gave up her career to start the hardest career there is, which is raising kids and homeschooling 4 kids with a 3-year-old running around.
And favorite color?
Blue.
Why blue?
I have no idea.
I can see it. That's why your shirt, right?
Yeah, it's
there you
blue
go.
Today. Yeah.
That's good. And for everyone else watching, what can you say? As far as why they should vote for you. What are some of your top reasons why you'd like to take on this role?
Yeah, I've got a vision for the county. It's to make it the best place in America to raise a family, and our current commissioners and past commissioners, and by the way, one of our prior commissioners that was very revered, Sullivan, just passed away I believe yesterday. So a lot of our commissioners have done a great job, including those that are there serving today. And in fact, when folks started asking me to run, I go, well, what's broken? Why do you want me? I'm a change agent guy. I'm not a caretaker type personality. And so as I started to get more involved in looking around, I started asking, hey, what's the vision for our entire county? And I don't mean the government institution. I mean a vision that sits at the precipice over the county that every citizen can tie into, and every municipality can tie into, and so forth. And would you believe there isn't one? And in fact, I sat with our state rep, Mark Baisley, one day, and I asked him, hey, Mark, what's the vision of the county? And he said, man, you're making me feel like a buffoon. And I go, I'm not trying to be right. I assume I'm wrong. And he said he's been here for 30 years and been in politics for better part of 19 in some way or another. No one's ever asked him that question, and he didn't think of it himself. And so part of this is casting a vision. The reason I say best place in America to raise a family is because, quite frankly, the roads could be paved in gold, and I wouldn't care, right, when our children are killing themselves, right? The leading cause of death of our youth, 10 to 24 in the county, is suicide. So people ask, how does that fit in? Well, our budget, in another why me, our budget's $500 million a year. I've run 2 different programs in excess of $10 billion a year. I've run $500 million a year of profit and loss in industry. And so I know what a $500 million looks like. I know how to manage it. I know how to manage the personnel. But I also know that won't take up 100% of my time. I can help manage that with the other 2 commissioners who are very versed in it at this point, and then help drive towards these broader long-term visions, right? But we need people in the county that are used to managing $500 million and more, and I'm the only candidate that has that experience. So I'm looking forward to getting into that role and then working with our pastors and our leaders in industry and our leaders in government to start addressing things like teen suicide or human trafficking or these broader issues, right, that are beyond the typical law enforcement thing in the county or the typical human services thing in the county, right? So I think we can push our vision out further from what we tend to look at as a county government and bring our more connective tissue to the county and each citizen in the county.
Yeah, I appreciate it. That's good. Do you have any final thoughts for the audience watching right now?
Well, I'd love it if people throw some questions in. I've got you can certainly ask them through Facebook accounts. It's Elect Clint Dorris.
You do have a lot of supporters. There are a lot of comments coming through like, "Yay, Clint! We support you, Clint," and things like that. I haven't seen any direct questions yet. So if you have a direct question, drop it in there. But you are getting some comments coming through.
Yeah, great. So I think that, or folks can message me directly or through our website, electclint.com. But, it's just an honor. I won the assembly vote by 67%. It's an honor and very humbling that so many folks in the county that, frankly, have been involved in the nitty gritty of politics much longer than I have are willing to recognize that we might need a little bit different here than just the same old, same old person in the county. And so that's very humbling, and just looking forward to service. The final thing I'll say is, this vision transcends party, right? It doesn't matter where you are on the spectrum. You care about the community that you raise your children in. It transcends denomination, right? It doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or a Christian or what denomination of Christian or Jewish. We care about what our kids are raised in. And so I think that's really important, right? Because the role of commissioner is you're the commissioner for 355,000 people. You're not just a commissioner for the people that agree with you. And that's a big difference, I think, for many people.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So one more time, Clint, if someone does have a specific question for you, what's your Facebook page? What's your website address? Things like that.
Sure. Facebook is Elect Clint Dorris.
Okay.
And then website is electclint.com.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well,
my phone number is spread everywhere. You can call me.
We did get a question that came in. So
good.
Let's look at it. What are your thoughts on open space in Douglas County and the open space sales tax that is set to sunset in 2023?
Great question. So a lot of people, come out of the gate and say, "I'm not for new taxes. I'm never gonna agree with that." A little bit of civics here. For the county commissioner, the three commissioners vote on things to get on the ballot. So in 2023, our open space tax, which is a 0.17 of 1%, open space tax is up for either sunset or extension. And so there are certainly folks out there that feel as though, if you extend it, it's a new tax, and I won't get into that discussion. But here's how I look at open space very specifically. It'd be different on different topics, but for open space, I feel like open space is, no kidding, one of the cherished identities of our county. It's part of what makes us who we are. And thousands and thousands of people enjoy the open space every day. In fact, that's probably one of the things that's like quite literally keeping people sane in this lockdown. And so right now, the open space, I did a little math the other day, it equates to about $33 per person in the county per year. So as a commissioner, my role would be to allow it on the ballot or not allow it on the ballot. My answer to that is that because it is a unique identity to our county, it would be arrogant of me not to allow it on the ballot. I trust the voters to make the right decision, whether they want to write a $33 check every year for each person in their household, so that we continue to build or create that piggy bank that allows us to maintain our current open space, and then even in some instances acquire additional open space. So I would never take that right away from the citizens that are of voting age in our county. And I'm certain that's going to make a lot of people really happy to hear, and it'll make some people not so happy because they see it as a new tax. On that particular instance, I trust the voters to make the right decision on that. It's arrogant of me to not trust them. That's a great question.
Yeah, it was a great question. If you have any other questions, feel free to post them below, and we can try to answer them before we jump off here. Any big plans this week, or what's your day look like now that things are kind of changing?
Well, so work, my little businesses doesn't, that stuff doesn't change much. I really am an advocate for us allowing it. To me, I think it's time to get back to work for folks. This doesn't hurt me, so to speak, personally. From my businesses, we're still pressing forward, but my heart breaks for these folks that are out there that, whether you're a server in a restaurant or maybe you own a small company. I mean, we're just demolishing these folks, and in that repercussion, those ripples will go for months, if not years. Right? Some people will never be able to reopen. So I'm a big advocate for that. We're also trying to help get people fed across the county, working with some of our churches here. So that keeps me pretty busy as well. And then, of course, the campaign thing, it never sleeps. It doesn't matter. We could have the bubonic plague going on out there. And if you're in politics, running for politics, it doesn't sleep. So we're about to get signs and put those out and start competing against the other opponents here in the race as well. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, well, and on that note too, I run a small group of local businesses here called the Local Business Alliance, and we specifically focus on these, mom and pop shops essentially. These guys aren't that big corporate backing and things like that. And it seems like they're really struggling right now. It sounds like the financing that's rolling out is taking too long for them, even though some people say it's fast. Do you have any words of encouragement or advice for these guys that are just kind of hanging in there, but they really do make the landscape of the towns like Castle Rock and things like that the way they are?
Well, I agree. In fact, yesterday I was having a call with someone on this topic, and I was in front of a couple of strip centers that over in the Promenade area that literally every one of them was closed, right? And it really does drive home, even if some of these are kind of larger enterprises, it really drives home the fact that 98% of our businesses across the country are less than 20 people. And my word of encouragement certainly is back to the Bible in John 16:33, right, where God tells us we're going to have troubles in this world, but don't worry, He's overcome the world, and God really has overcome COVID, and these are difficult times, right? In the military, you joke that there's no atheists in foxholes, and this really is a time where people, it's far better to lean into your faith than to fear. And to some extent, it's probably not a bad time to turn off the media that's creates this constant cycle, right? Because that just keeps people in a fearful state. Even now, I see Governor Cuomo and others that are saying, the numbers are going down significantly. They're even trying to figure out how to open some small businesses or kind of ease back into this. And there's still a lot of folks out there that I think, even in our worst location in the country, they struggle to accept that it's okay to start to open back up, right? I think people will maintain social distancing and if we need to wear masks, okay, but keep the faith. I think if we've maybe got about 15 more days under this current deal. My guess is any governor that tries to take it longer than that may have some civil disobedience in the form of, I'm going to go open up my storefront, and I think we just got to get back to work here and do it with a common sense manner and reach out if anybody needs any help. We'll help to get you linked up with folks to help.
Well, we're going to have to definitely do this again as we get closer to the election, and we'll definitely put the word out a little bit earlier, so we can get more individuals that might have question and answers, and maybe they can send us questions that we can ask you ahead of time as well. For those who can't make the live feed, but Yeah, it's been great. I'm going to sign off here in just a minute. Clint, hang on the line, and I will be with you. And one more time, how can people reach you if they need to, if they have questions for you? Obviously, you're very accessible. I've learned that. I had no idea who you were until as of recent, as running for this position, and it's been, pretty simple to get in touch with you, and you're very timely on responses, so I appreciate it.
Sure. So just one last time, Facebook, it's elect Clint Dorris, and then my website is electclint.com, and there's phone numbers out there. You guys can reach out via phone number or message me direct or throw stuff on Facebook, and I'll try to get to it as quick as I can. And Sean, I appreciate what you're doing for the community here and keeping folks informed. And I know you guys and the folks over at Top of the Rock are really doing your part to try to help out the small guy in the community. That might be somebody calling me right there that's online. But anyway, I appreciate it. This is what community's about. I'm anxious to see us open up a little bit so that we can help our neighbors, right? This is that connective tissue that I'm referring to. This is what I'm looking for to help facilitate in this role or in my future roles as well.
Yeah, I think Douglas County is a unique place. It's not like, and I say this every day on these different shows and stuff that I do, but it's really unique. I mean, it's crazy how many people, regardless of walks of life and things like that, have come together to kind of support one another, whether it's through food or donations or whatever, shoveling someone's sidewalk, promoting their business. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
very cool. Yeah, we should keep doing more of it.
Yep. Awesome.
Thanks,
Clint.
Sean.
We'll all be in touch. We'll schedule another one of these in the future and get some more Q&A done for you. But I appreciate you taking time out of your day to meet with us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And y'all are watching CRCO, Castle Rock TV. Catch you later.